Hey guys, tonight we're going to walk the quiet, gaslit corridors of a house that is at the very center of a storm. A house that belongs to everyone, and therefore, to no one. Tonight, you are Abraham Lincoln, and you are about to have a very, very long night. The chances of you successfully navigating the bloody crucible of the Civil War, the backbiting politics of your own cabinet, and the crushing weight of a nation tearing itself apart are, let's be honest, slim. You probably won't survive this with your sense of humor or your sanity fully intact. So, before you settle into comfort, if stories like this bring you a sense of peace, please consider a gentle tap on the like and subscribe buttons. There's no obligation, of course, but it truly helps our late-night journeys find more fellow travelers. And as always, I'd love to know where and when you're listening from. Please feel free to post your city and local time in the comments below. It's always a quiet thrill to see where our adventures reach. Now, let the outside world fade away. Dim the lights down low. Let the soft white noise of a fan carry you. Take a deep breath and step with me into tonight's story. You are the President of the United States. Not that the title offers any comfort right now. You are Abraham Lincoln, and you have just woken up. The first thing you're aware of is the silence. It's a deep, profound quiet that seems to have its own texture, its own weight. It's the silence of 4 in the morning in the Executive Mansion, a building that hums with frantic energy during the day, but falls into a watchful stillness in the dead of night. Your feet find the floor, and the chill of the polished wood against your bare soles is the first concrete sensation that pulls you fully from the clutches of sleep. The air in the bedroom is cool, carrying the faint, sweet scent of the honeysuckle climbing the trellis outside your window, mingled with the metallic taps of the gas lamps hissing softly on the street below. You are in your bedroom on the second floor, the southwest corner of the house. This room has been your sanctuary and your cage for years now. It's where you sleep, fitfully, beside your wife, Mary, and it's where you often work late into the night, the floor around your desk littered with maps, telegrams, and petitions. But tonight, the room feels different. It feels larger, emptier. The familiar shadows cast by the heavy mahogany furniture seem to stretch and twist into unfamiliar shapes. You rise from the bed, careful not to disturb Mary. She sleeps a troubled sleep herself, punctuated by sighs and murmurs. You pull on a simple nightshirt, the worn cotton a familiar comfort against your skin. You don't bother with slippers. The cold floor feels grounding, real, a necessary anchor against the lingering phantoms of your dream. You walk over to the window and part the heavy curtains just enough to peer out. Washington is asleep, or, at least, it's pretending to be. The city is a sprawling collection of low, dark shapes under a moonless sky, punctuated by the lonely glow of the gaslights that trace the muddy paths of its streets. From here, you can almost believe it's a city at peace, but you know better. You know that beyond the manicured lawns of the White House, the city is overflowing. It's choked with soldiers and contractors, with wounded men filling makeshift hospitals and churches and public buildings. It's filled with spies and opportunists, with grieving families and desperate office seekers. The whole city holds its breath, waiting for news from the front, waiting for you. The weight of it all settles on your shoulders, a physical presence, more real than the nightshirt you wear. It's a pressure that begins at the base of your skull and spreads down your spine. Sometimes you feel impossibly tall, a target for every grievance in the nation. Other times, you feel crushed by the responsibility, hunched and small. Historians still argue whether the immense stress of your presidency was the sole cause of your increasingly vivid and morbid dreams, or if you possessed a genuinely prophetic sensitivity. Tonight, you don't feel prophetic, you just feel tired, a deep, soul-level weariness that no amount of sleep seems to touch. You turn from the window, your towering, awkward frame casting a long, dancing shadow in the lamplight from the hall. The silence of the house presses in again, but it's not truly silent. If you stand perfectly still, you can hear its secret sounds, the groan of a floorboard settling, the faint, rhythmic ticking of the grand clock in the main hall downstairs, the scuttling of a mouse behind a wall. It's the sound of a house holding its secrets. You'll run a hand through your famously untamable hair. It's a mess, as usual. You rub your eyes, trying to erase the images that sleep brought you, but they cling to the edges of your consciousness like smoke, a feeling of dread, a sense of profound and public grief. It was unsettling. Not a nightmare in the traditional sense, with monsters and chases, but a slow, somber vision that felt deeply, horribly real. You shake your head, trying to clear it. Dreams are just dreams, you tell yourself, figments of an overwrought mind. Your mind is certainly over. It's a chaotic office, cluttered with casualty lists from places like Antietam and Gettysburg, with the bitter arguments of your cabinet members, with the constant gnawing anxiety for the future of the Union. A quirky, and perhaps little known, fact is your habit of wandering the White House at night. It is not uncommon for a lone guard or a sleepy servant to be startled by the sight of the president, clad only in his nightshirt, pacing the darkened halls like a restless spirit. It's in these lonely, silent hours that you do some of your best and most tortured thinking. The problems of the day seem to clarify in the stillness of the night, away from the endless parade of people who want something from you. They all want something: a pardon, a promotion, a contract, an opinion, a moment of your time. Here, in the dark, the only thing that wants anything from you is your own conscience, and it is a demanding companion. You feel a sudden, sharp pang of loneliness. It's a familiar ache. You are surrounded by people all day, yet you are profoundly alone. Who can possibly understand the specific gravity of the decisions you must make? General Meade's hesitation after Gettysburg, the constant political maneuvering of Secretary Chase, the heartbreaking letters from mothers who have lost their sons. You carry it all. You are the final backstop. The decision, always, is yours. You look back at the bed, at Mary's sleeping form. Even she, who knows you better than anyone, cannot fully enter this private, desolate space where you wrestle with the fate of millions, the weight of a nation. It's a phrase people throw around, a poetic, abstract idea. But for you, it is terrifyingly literal. It is the weight of every coffin, every amputated limb, every burned-out farm, every hateful word. It all funnels right here, into this room, into your head. You feel an urge to flee, to just walk out the door, down the stairs, and out into the sleeping city. To just be a man, anonymous and unburdened, walking under the stars. But you know you can't. Your height alone makes you recognizable from a block away, and besides, where would you go? The war is everywhere. The responsibility is fused to your very bones. You're not just a man anymore. You are a symbol, a lightning rod, a last, best hope. And it is an exhausting thing to be. The floorboards are cold, your thoughts are grim, and the memory of the dream, with its silent, weeping crowds, and its terrible, central focus, begins to creep back in, refusing to be dismissed. It waits for you, patiently, in the shadows of your mind. You know, with a sinking feeling, that this night is far from over. The sun is hours away, and you have a long, dark walk ahead of you, both in the halls of this house and in the corridors of your own mind. You stand there in the center of the presidential bedroom, the cold of the floorboards seeping into the soles of your feet. You try to focus on that simple, physical sensation. Cold floor, solid house, sleeping city, but it's no use. The dream rushes back in to fill the silence, replaying itself on the inside of your eyelids. It wasn't a narrative, not really. It was a feeling, an atmosphere of absolute, crushing sorrow. You felt it before you saw anything, a grief so profound it seemed to suck all the air out of your lungs. A collective mourning that was as vast and impersonal as the ocean. It was the weight of the nation you felt just moments ago, but amplified, given a voice, and his voice was the sound of weeping. It started with that sound, a strange, subdued sobbing that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It wasn't the loud, theatrical wailing of a few, but the quiet, hopeless, and unified sound of a multitude, 1,000, maybe 10,000, people crying in unison. The sound was muffled, as if you were hearing it through a thick wall. In the dream, you were walking, searching for the source of this terrible sound. You moved through the familiar lower floors of the White House, yet they were subtly wrong. The light was dim and strange, the corridors seemed longer, and the air was thick with a funereal stillness. You saw no one, but the weeping grew louder, more distinct, as you approached the East Room, the great ceremonial parlor of the mansion. The doors were closed. In the dream, you pushed them open and stepped inside. The room was crowded, packed with a silent, weeping throng. Faces you recognized: cabinet members, generals, foreign dignitaries, and faces you didn't, all of them blurred by tears. They stood in solemn rows, their gazes fixed on the center of the room, and in the center, raised on a platform, was a catafalque, a frame built to support a coffin, and on that catafalque rested a coffin. It was draped in black. Soldiers stood guard at each corner, heads bowed, a chilling, static tableau of death and ceremony. This is the part that repeats in your mind now, standing in the dark of your bedroom, the image of that casket, formal and final, at the heart of your home. You try to push it away. It's morbid, a product of stress and exhaustion. You've seen more death in the last few years than any man should. It's only natural that your mind would conjure such scenes. It's what we'd now call a stress dream, the kind that makes you want to wake up and spend an hour scrolling through pictures of cats. But your access to calming digital fluff is tragically limited. A fascinating and quirky tidbit about your personality is this duality. You are a man of logic, a lawyer who built a career on rational arguments and precise language, yet you are also deeply superstitious. You pay attention to omens. You believe, on some level, in the power of dreams to signify what's to come. So you can't simply dismiss this vision as a bit of undigested beef, as Scrooge might say. A part of you, a deep and fearful part, insists on asking, what did it mean? In the dream, you were as bewildered as you are now. You approached one of the soldiers standing guard and whispered, "Who is dead in the White House?" He looked at you, his face a mask of sorrowful confusion. "The president," he answered, his voice thick with grief. "He was killed by an assassin." Then you heard a fresh wave of convulsive sobbing from the crowd, a great, unified cry of despair, and the sheer force of it had jolted you awake. Your heart is pounding now, a frantic, trapped bird against your ribs. You press a hand to your chest, feeling the steady, living beat. You are alive. You are here. It was a dream. Just a dream. But the feeling lingers. That profound sense of national bereavement. It clings to you like the humid Washington air. Historians still argue about the exact nature of this premonition. Was it a genuine psychic event, fueled by some unknown sensitivity, or was it the logical, subconscious conclusion of a mind constantly assessing threats? You receive dozens of death threats a week. You know there are men who would see you dead. Your mind was simply connecting the dots in the most dramatic way possible. You try to rationalize it. You are the president. Of course, if a president were to die, this is how it would be. The ceremony, the guards, the weeping in the East Room. It's all logical. But that doesn't make the memory of it any less terrifying. The dream felt too real. The cold dread it produced is still pooled in the pit of your stomach. You walk across the room and pour a glass of water from the pitcher on your nightstand. The water is tepid, but you drink it down in 3 long gulps. The simple act, a small rebellion against the lingering horror. You are not a man given to panic. You have faced down secession, battlefield disasters, and political betrayals with a steady, often melancholic, resolve. But this feels different. This is an enemy you cannot see, a threat you cannot reason with, a ghost from the future. Perhaps you think of your own mortality, not in the abstract way one does on a quiet afternoon, but as a sudden, concrete possibility. An assassin. The word echoes in the silent room. It is not an honorable death in battle, not a slow fading from old age. It is a sudden, violent end, an act of hatred. The thought makes you feel cold again, a chill that has nothing to do with the temperature of the room. The dream is not fading with wakefulness, as dreams are supposed to. If anything, its details are becoming sharper, its emotional weight more immense. It has planted a seed of pure dread in your mind, and you have a terrible feeling that it is beginning to take root. The bedroom has become a cage. The 4 walls, which a few minutes ago were just the boundaries of a room, now feel like they are closing in, trapping you with the lingering echo of that terrible, sobbing crowd. The silence is no longer peaceful. It's accusatory. You have to move. You have to do something. The phantoms of the subconscious are slippery, but the problems of the nation are concrete. They are written on paper, transmitted by wire. They are real, and right now, you crave reality. You need facts and figures to serve as ballast against the ethereal horror of the dream. There is only one place to get them at this hour. You move quietly across the room, grabbing a simple, dark shawl and draping it over your shoulders, on top of your night. It's not exactly a presidential ensemble, more suited to a late-night pantry raid, but decorum is a luxury for peace. You don't even think to find your shoes. The urgency is too great. You need to know what's happening out there, in the tangible world of mud and gunpowder and men. You slip out of the bedroom, closing the door with a barely audible click. The long, grand hallway of the second-floor residence is dark, save for a single gas lamp left burning at low ebb near the main staircase. Your shadow, thrown by the flickering light, is a grotesque caricature that stretches and writhes along the wall. A giant, hunched figure stalking the presidential mansion. You pad down the grand staircase, your bare feet making no sound on the thick runner. Each step feels deliberate, a step away from the dream and towards the grim duties of your waking life. Downstairs, the house is even more still. The air is stale with the faint, lingering scent of yesterday's cigar smoke and the perfume of long-departed visitors. You pass the entrance to the east room, its tall, white doors gleaming faintly in the gloom. You avert your eyes. You cannot look at it. Not right now. In your mind's eye, you can still see the weeping crowds, the coffin, the bowed heads of the soldiers. You quicken your pace, heading for a side door that leads out onto the grounds. The moment you step outside, the cool night air hits you. It's a relief, a clean break from the claustrophobic atmosphere of the house. A light mist hangs in the air, purling on the blades of grass and making the gravel path before you shine slick and dark. The smell is of damp earth and distant woods. You take a deep breath. This is real. The crunch of the gravel under your feet is real. The chill that raises goosebumps on your arms is real. You begin the short walk from the White House to the War Department building, just a stone's throw to the west. It's a walk you've made hundreds of times, at all hours of the day and night. A well-documented historical fact is your near-constant presence at the telegraph office within the War Department. You trusted the telegraph more than you trusted the filtered reports from your own generals. The raw, unvarnished dispatches from the front were where you believed the truth lived. As you walk, the immense responsibility of your position, the weight you felt earlier, settles back onto your shoulders. But it has changed. In the bedroom, it was the weight of dread and prophecy. Here, under the dark sky, it is the weight of command. You are the commander-in-chief. Every decision, from grand strategy to the appointment of a single brigadier general, ultimately flows from you. You think of Grant, besieging Petersburg. You think of Sherman, somewhere in Georgia. Are they moving? Are they fighting? Are they winning? These are questions that need answers, not the unanswerable riddle of a dream. Historians still debate the extent of your micromanagement of the war effort. Some see these late-night walks to the telegraph office as the mark of a brilliant, hands-on strategist, desperate for the unfiltered data he needed to make his decisions. Others view it as the behavior of an anxious man, a lonely leader unable to fully delegate or trust his subordinates, needing to feel the pulse of the war himself to be reassured it was still beating. Tonight, you feel like both. You are the strategist who needs the data, and you are the anxious man who needs the reassurance. There's a slightly comical, if you were in the mood for comedy, aspect to your appearance. A scarecrow president. You are, after all, an unusually tall man, and now, eerie walking through the damp grounds of the executive mansion in the middle of the night, wearing little more than a nightshirt and a shawl. It was a sight the guards grew accustomed to, the gaunt, lonely figure of the president striding with purpose, through the darkness, looking less like the leader of the free world, and more like a troubled farmer checking on his livestock. You imagine what one of the young sentries must think, seeing you drift through the mist, a ghost haunting the grounds of his own administration. The thought is grimly amusing. You reach the unassuming brick building of the War Department. A single gas lamp burns over the entrance, casting a small, lonely pool of yellow light. This is the nervous system of the Union war effort. Inside that building, a network of copper wires spreads out across thousands of miles, connecting you to armies in the field, to supply depots, to the very heart of the conflict. There's no encrypted command center in the White House basement, no secure video link. There is this, a brick building, a few tired clerks, and the ceaseless, rhythmic clicking of the telegraph key. That sound, you think, is the true heartbeat of the nation right now. You pause at the door, one hand on the cold brass knob. You take a breath, steeling yourself for whatever news awaits. Good or bad, it will be real, and right now, that is all you want. You turn the brass knob, and the door opens with a soft groan. You step from the cool, damp quiet of the night into a world of controlled chaos and ceaseless sound. The air inside the War Department's telegraph office is warm, stuffy, and thick with the smells of hot machinery, strong coffee, and human sweat. But the most overwhelming sensation is the sound. It's a constant, chattering symphony of metallic clicks, a dozen telegraph sounders all talking at once, their sharp, rhythmic patterns overlapping into a single, frantic pulse. This is the ticking heart of the Union, and you have come to place your ear against its chest. A young man at a desk near the door looks up, his eyes wide with surprise for a split second before professional calm takes over. He starts to rise, but you wave him down with a simple, weary gesture. They're used to you here. Your late-night appearances are no longer a major event. You are just part of the office's nocturnal ecosystem. You nod to the chief operator, a man named Tinker, who gives you a respectful but knowing look. It's a look that says, "Couldn't sleep either, Mr. President." You make your way to a small, simple desk in the corner of the room, out of the main flow of traffic. This is your unofficial workstation, a quiet harbor in this sea of information. A historical fact that speaks volumes about your leadership style is that you had your own designated spot right here in the telegraph office. You didn't summon the messages to the White House. You came to the messages. You wanted to be at the source, to feel the flow of the war as it happened, not hours later, in a sanitized report. You sit down, the wood of the simple chair groaning under your weight, and you just listen for a moment. To the uninitiated, the cacophony of clicks is just noise. But you've spent so many hours here that it has become a language. It's a quirky and impressive skill you've developed, the ability to discern the nature of a message simply by its sound. You can't understand the words, not like the trained operators, but you can read the rhythm. You can hear the staccato urgency of a skirmish report, the longer, more methodical prose of a general's daily summary, and the slow, somber cadence of a casualty list. Right now, the air is full of routine traffic. The clicks are steady, businesslike. A young operator across the room, a boy of no more than 19 with a green e-shade perched on his forehead, suddenly stiffens. The rhythm of his sounder has changed. It's faster, more agitated. You watch him, your own body tensing. He listens intently, his hand flying across a slip of paper, scribbling down letters in a frantic, spidery script. The message comes in code, of course, a simple substitution cipher that turns the plain English of the battlefield into a jumble of nonsense letters to confuse any Confederate sympathizers who might tap the lines. The boy finishes writing, rips the sheet from his pad, and hurries it over to a decoding clerk at a central table. This is the part you find both fascinating and agonizing. The translation. The clerk pulls out a large, leather-bound codebook. He scans the jumbled letters on the slip of paper, then runs his finger down a column in the book, referencing, his lips moving silently. It's like watching a priest interpret an oracle. This flimsy piece of paper, this collection of meaningless letters, contains a story of life and death from 1,000 miles away. Just a probe near the Appomattox River, sir, the clerk says, glancing over at you. General Lord reports, lights, resistance, nothing to be concerned about. You nod, the tension in your shoulders easing slightly. It's not victory, but it's not defeat. It's the mundane reality of a war of attrition. This is what you came for. This is real. It's not a phantom crowd weeping in your parlor. It's a skirmish, a report, a fact. A few minutes later, another message comes in. This one is for the quartermaster, a request for 10,000 pairs of socks to be sent to City Point. You almost smile. The grand machinery of war, powered by tactics and courage, runs on socks. It's a grounding, absurdly normal detail. Then, a different sounder begins to chatter. This one is slower, deliberate. Each click seems to fall with a heavy finality. You know this rhythm. The operator listens, his face impassive, but his pencil moves with a slow, dreadful care. When he brings the encoded slip to the clerk, he does so with a certain reverence. The clerk deciphers it, his expression growing more grim with each translated word. He brings the final, decoded message over to your desk and places it before you without a word. It's from a field hospital near Petersburg. A list of officers who died of their wounds in the last 24 hours. A captain, 3 lieutenants, a major, just 5 names, followed by their home states: Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Maine, Illinois. your own state. The letters are crisp and clear on the page, but they represent a terrible, irreversible finality. These men, who were alive yesterday, are now just a piece of information, a grim tally. Historians still argue whether this constant immersion in the raw, unfiltered casualty reports helped you maintain a realistic view of the war's immense human cost, or if it simply deepened the melancholy that so famously defined your character. As you stare at the names, you feel both are true. It keeps you from seeing the war as a game of pins on a map, but it also carves another line of grief into your soul. This is the 19th century version of Doom's, staring at a constant, ticking feed of information, most of it mundane, some of it tragic, all while hoping for that one dispatch, that one piece of news that will signal the end is near. You fold the paper carefully. The dream was a horror of the unknown. This paper is a horror of the known. You came here seeking facts to fight a phantom, but the facts themselves are their own kind of ghost, their own kind of burden. The telegraph continues its relentless ticking. You fold the slip of paper with the 5 names on it and place it in the pocket of your dressing gown, though it feels like you're placing a small, sharp stone directly against your heart. The ticking of the telegraphs continues, a relentless, mechanical chatter that suddenly feels less like a heartbeat and more like the gnawing of insects. You have found the facts you were looking for, but they are ashes in your mouth. The reality of the war is just as haunting as the fiction of your dream. There is no comfort to be found here. You'll give a silent, weary nod to the decoding clerk and turn to leave. The operators, sensing your departure, don't look up. They are conduits, living wires, and their work doesn't stop for presidents or for grief. As you step back out into the pre-dawn mist, the silence that greets you feels different than it did before. On the walk over, it was a silence you wanted to fill with information. Now, on the walk back, it feels like a respectful, quiet, a brief, mournful pause in the world's clamor, offered in tribute to the names in your pocket. The White House looms before you, less a home and more a grand, solemn monument. You slip back inside, the latch clicking softly behind you. The air is still, the deep shadows undisturbed. The path to your own bedroom seems impossibly long, promising only a return to the cold sheets and the waiting phantoms of your own mind. You find you cannot turn that way. Your feet, acting on an instinct deeper than thought, guide you past the grand staircase and down a smaller, more private corridor, towards your son's room. You push open the door to Tad's bedroom. It is, as always, a scene of magnificent chaos. A fortress of pillows and blankets dominates one corner. Toy soldiers, some standing, some fallen, are scattered across a rug, frozen in a silent, miniature battle. There's a profound and wonderful messiness to this room. It is a room where a life is being lived, uncomplicated by politics or casualty lists. The air here smells of a child's sleep, a clean, sweet scent that is the purest thing you have experienced all night. And there, in the middle of a rumpled bed, is Tad, your youngest son, your court jester, your wild, unpredictable joy. He is sprawled on his back, one arm thrown over his head, his mouth slightly open. His breathing is a soft, rhythmic whistle. He is the complete opposite of the house's oppressive silence. He is life, loud, messy, and wonderful life. A well-known historical fact is that Tad, born with a partial cleft palate, had a speech impediment that made him difficult for strangers to understand, but you understood him perfectly. You found his boundless, chaotic energy to be a vital antidote to the crushing formality of your office. You moved deeper into the room, your large frame navigating the obstacle course of toys with a practiced gentleness. You stand over his bed, just watching him, watching the rise and fall of his small chest, the way his hair, so much like your own, sticks up in unruly tufts. This is the respite. This is the anchor. The problems of the nation are vast, abstract, a storm of immense and competing forces. But this is simple. The love for a child. It is the most real thing in the world. On a chair in the corner, you see a small, custom-tailored Union Army uniform, complete with a miniature officer's sword. It's a quirky and poignant tidbit that Tad loved to dress up in this uniform and drill the White House staff, sometimes even attempting to issue pardons for toy soldiers he had slated for execution. Seeing it now, after reading the names of the real officers who have fallen, sends a complicated pang through your chest. It's the innocence of a child playing at the grim business that consumes your every waking hour, an innocence you are fighting this war to preserve. You reach down, your large, calloused hand, gently brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. His skin is warm. He stirs slightly, murmuring something unintelligible in his sleep, and settles again. For a moment, you allow yourself to feel nothing but the simple, fierce love for this boy. It's a feeling so powerful it momentarily pushes everything else aside. The dream, the telegraph, the names on the paper, they all recede, banished to the perimeter by the brilliant, warm light of this single, focused affection. It's the human equivalent of a reset button, a reminder of the fundamental stakes. Historians still argue about the family dynamics within the Lincoln White House. Some portray you as a somewhat distant, though loving, father, perpetually absorbed by the immense weight of your work. Others, however, emphasize moments just like this one, suggesting your children were your primary emotional anchor in the storm, the one true solace that kept the melancholy from consuming you entirely. Right now, you are not a historical figure being debated. You are just a father who is scared, a father who is tired, a father drawing strength from his sleeping son. The weight in your pocket, the small, sharp stone of the casualty list, is still there, but holding your hand over Tad's sleep-in form, you feel a different weight. The small, warm weight of your son's own hand, which you imagine holding in yours. One is the weight of grief, the other is the weight of hope. They are inseparable. You carry them both. After a few more minutes, you straighten up. You feel, not lighter, not healed, but centered. The purpose of the struggle, the reason for the sleepless nights, and the agonizing decisions, is breathing softly in the bed in front of you. You turn and slip out of the room as quietly as you came in, leaving the door slightly ajar. You have a war to finish. Leaving Tad's room, you feel a fragile sense of equilibrium return. The moment of quiet connection with your son hasn't solved anything, but it has recalibrated your spirit. The war is a monstrous, tangled equation, but the variable that matters, the reason for fighting, is love, family, a future for children like him to grow up in. That single, pure thought is a lantern in the oppressive darkness of the night. You feel the immense weight on your shoulders again, but now you feel strong enough to carry it. The path back to your own duties seems clearer. You walk with a steadier, more purposeful stride through the main corridor of the residence. The deep silence of the house no longer feels menacing. It's just quiet. The long case clock at the end of the hall chimes the half hour, its gentle, metallic tones marking the slow, inexorable passage of time towards dawn. You are tired, bone-weary, but the frantic edge of your anxiety has been smoothed away. You are the president. You have a job to do. As you approach the grand staircase, you pass the tall, imposing double doors of the east room on your left. Earlier, you deliberately averted your gaze, unable to confront the space your dream had so violated. But now, buoyed by that brief, paternal peace, you feel bold enough to face it. It's just a room, you tell yourself. A room of plaster and wood and chandelier. A room you and Mary had spent a small fortune redecorating. Much to the chagrin of the press, you turn your head and look directly at the doors, and for a fraction of a second, the world fractures. The solid, polished wood of the doors becomes momentarily transparent, like smoked glass. It's not a thought, not a memory, but a vivid, waking, flashing image projected directly onto your vision. Through the phantom doors, you see it, the East Room, and it is exactly as it was in your dream. The vision is no longer fragmented or hazy. It is sharp, detailed, and horrifyingly clear. In the center of the vast, empty space stands the catafalque, a stark, black-draped rectangle of profound finality. You see the rich pattern of the carpet you and Mary picked out, the brilliant gleam of the crystal chandeliers overhead, and this obscene intrusion of death at its heart. You see the silent crowd of mourners, their faces pale and streaked with tears in the dim, funereal light. You see the 4 soldiers, standing at the corners of the platform, their heads bowed in solemn, unmoving vigil. The image is utterly silent, yet you can feel the soundless weeping, the immense pressure of 1,000 broken hearts. It lasts no more than a single, stuttering heartbeat. Then, it's gone. The vision vanishes as quickly as it came. You are left staring at the solid, opaque, and entirely normal doors of the East Room. Your own reflection is a faint, distorted ghost on the polished wood, but the image is burned into the back of your mind. You stumble, catching yourself with a hand against the cool plaster of the opposite wall. A cold sweat breaks out across your forehead and the back of your neck. Your heart, which had settled into a steady rhythm, is now hammering against your ribs like a prisoner demanding release. The fragile piece you found in Tad's room is not just broken, it is obliterated, shattered into a million pieces. This is a terrifying new development. The dream was one thing. It was confined to the realm of sleep, a nightly phantom you could hope to escape by waking. But this was an invasion, a breach. The horror has crossed the border from your subconscious into your waking reality. A heavy, ironic historical fact is that the East Room, this grand ballroom you and Mary so painstakingly refurbished to host parties and project an image of Union stability, was historically the room used for the most solemn of public viewings. It was the nation's parlor, and thus its morning room. Several of your predecessors had lain in state right there. You know this, and the knowledge makes the vision feel less like a random hallucination and more like a dress rehearsal. Historians still argue about the psychological impact of these visions. Were they hallucinations brought on by extreme post-traumatic stress and chronic lack of sleep, or something more? For a man of the 19th century, steeped in biblical narratives and folk superstitions, the line between a stressed mind and a prophetic one was far, far blurrier than it is for us today. All you know is that it felt real. It felt like a memory of something that hadn't happened yet. You feel a wave of dizziness. It's one thing to carry the burdens of a nation. It's another to carry the premonition of your own violent death. It's like a jump scare in the quietest, most serious film imaginable, and your own brain is the director. There's nowhere to run. The threat isn't just in the heated rhetoric of your enemies or the crackpot letters you receive. The threat is now in the house. It has a shape and a place. It's waiting for you, right through those doors. The brief respite is over. The centeredness is gone. You are now just a man, standing alone in a dark hallway, terrified of what he has just seen. You stand frozen in the hallway, your hand pressed flat against the wall, the plaster cool against your palm. The grand clock chimes again, but you don't hear it. All you can hear is the roaring in your ears. All you can see is the afterimage of the catafalque burned onto your retinas. The feeling of being centered, of being a father drawing strength from his son, has been replaced by the cold, specific terror of a man who believes he has just seen his own grave. You are profoundly, utterly alone in this knowledge, and you cannot bear it. The hours between the vision in the hall and the arrival of the morning sun are a featureless blur of anxiety. You don't return to bed. You pace. You pace the length of your office, your shadow a constant, restless companion. You watch the dark sky slowly soften to grey, then blush with the first hints of pink. The city awakens. The sounds of wagons, of vendors, of life, begin to drift up from the streets below. The White House itself comes alive with the clatter of servants preparing for the day. The world is moving on, oblivious, but you are stuck, trapped in that one horrifying second in the hallway. Later that morning, you are in your office's same room you use as a bedroom when your secretary, John Hay, announces the arrival of Secretary of State Seward, William H. Seward. He is, perhaps, the man you trust most in your cabinet. Your fiercest rival for the Republican nomination in 1860 has become your most loyal advisor, and you dare to think your friend. He strides in, a wiry, energetic man with a perpetually quizzical expression and a halo of unruly white hair, a smouldering cigar clamped in his fingers. He has come to discuss a dispatch from the British ambassador, but as he sits down opposite your desk, his shrewd eyes take in your appearance, your rumpled clothes, the dark circles under your eyes, the way you seem to be looking at something just over his shoulder. You look as though you have wrestled with a ghost and lost. Mr. President, Seward says, his voice a gravelly mix of concern and dry wit. The comment, meant in jest, strikes so close to the truth that it breaks through your reserve. You need to tell someone solid, someone who lives and breathes in the world of politics and pragmatism, who can perhaps explain this away, chain this phantom with logic. William, you begin, your voice lower than usual. I had a most unusual dream last night. Seward leans back, taking a long pull from his cigar and blowing a plume of smoke towards the ceiling. A quirky, defining tidbit about Seward was his near-constant companion, a cigar, which he wielded like a conductor's baton, using it to punctuate his sentences and emphasize his points. With the State of the Union, he says, "It is a wonder we do not all have nightmares every night." You shake your head. This was different, specific. And so, you recount it. You tell him about the stillness of the White House in the dream, the sound of weeping, the crowd in the East Room. You describe the catafalque, the honor guard, your conversation with the soldier. As you speak, you feel a fool. You, the president, the commander-in-chief, are talking about ghosts and visions like a country farmer spooked in a graveyard. When you finish, a heavy silence hangs in the room, thick as the cigar smoke. Soothe takes the cigar from his mouth and studies its glowing tip. He does not laugh. He does not mock you. He just listens, his expression unreadable. This was the core of your relationship, a fact often debated by historians. Was it a true friendship or a pragmatic political alliance? Soothe's reaction in moments like this suggests a genuine, if paternalistic, concern for your well, an attempt to manage the melancholy of a man he both admired and worried about. "Mr. President," he says finally, his tone gentle, soothing, "you are over. The pressures you are under are immense, greater than any man has ever shouldered in this office. You carry the grief of the entire nation. It is only natural that your mind, in sleep, should give that grief a shape, a stage, and an audience." He leans forward, his voice firm but kind. "It was anxieties, Abraham, nothing more. A morbid phantasm brought on by fatigue and the immense strain of this war. You cannot give it weight. You must not." His explanation is perfectly reasonable. It is sensible. It is the very thing you hoped to hear. A neat, logical box to put the horror in. But you cannot make it fit. He is explaining away the dream from Section 2. You haven't even told him about the waking vision from Section 6. The flash of clarity in the hallway. How could you? If the dream sounded like madness, the vision would sound like a confession of it. You wanted him to understand, to perhaps share an ounce of your fear, but instead, you have only deepened your own isolation. He sees a man who is exhausted and stressed. He does not see a man who has looked through a crack in time. You feel a profound sense of disappointment, mingled with a strange relief. He has given you an out, a rational path away from the terror, even if you do not believe you can take it. "Perhaps you are right, William," you say, the words feeling hollow. "Perhaps I am just tired." Soothe seems satisfied. He claps his hands on his knees. "All business once more. Good. Then let us banish these phantoms with the light of day. This matter of the British and their pointed neutrality regarding our blockade." He changes the subject, moving on to the tangible world of diplomacy. But you are only half. You nod and make the appropriate responses, but your mind is still standing in that dark hallway, staring at the doors to the East Room. Soothe's logic is a flimsy shield against a terror so profound. You are alone with it again, utterly alone. Soothe leaves, and the office becomes quiet again, save for the distant muted sounds of a government at work. The scent of his cigar smoke hangs in the air, a phantom presence. You are left with his sensible, logical words, which lie like a thin blanket over the smoldering fire of your terror. It is a comfort, of a sort, but it offers no real warmth. The chill you feel is too deep. You are alone, and the vision of the East Room is now a permanent resident in the crowded tenement of your thoughts. You know that to dwell on it is a path to madness. You must work. Work has always been your refuge, the place where the chaotic anxieties of your mind can be harnessed and forced into the neat, straight furrows of logic and language. You turn to the large, cluttered desk beside your bed. It's covered in a chaotic landscape of letters, maps, and official documents. Among them is the folder containing the notes and drafts for your next major address. You pull out the scattered sheets of paper. This is your other battlefield, the one fought not with cannons and cavalry, but with nouns and verbs. You are trying to find the words that will begin to knit a fractured country back together. Every syllable must be weighed, every phrase tested for its potential to be misunderstood, twisted, or used as fresh ammunition by your enemies. It is a task of immense delicacy, and today it feels impossible. A historical fact that reveals the depth of your craft is that you were a meticulous writer. You didn't dictate your great speeches to a secretary. You built them yourself, slowly, painstakingly, like a cabinet maker. You'd scribble a phrase on a scrap of paper, stick it in your waistcoat pocket, or even inside your tall hat, and let it marinate. Then you would assemble these fragments, refining, cutting, polishing, until the final structure emerged, lean and strong. You'd pick up a sheet with a few sentences scrawled on it. You read them aloud, your voice a low murmur in the quiet room. You test the rhythm, the cadence. You are searching for a tone that is not triumphant, but humble, not vengeful, but merciful, with malice toward none. You read, with charity for all, ... The words are good, they are the right words, but as you say them, your mind's eye betrays you. The word malice conjures the face of an assassin. The word charity conjures the weeping crowd from your dream. This is the new, terrible lens through which you see the world. The weight of words, which has always been immense for you, has now become almost unbearable. Each one is a potential bomb or a new wound. You try another phrase about the work of binding up the nation's wounds, a noble sentiment, but the image it creates in your head is not of a metaphorical healing. It is of a surgeon's tent, of blood and bandages, of the grim, quiet work you saw in the field hospitals, and it reminds you of the list of names in your pocket, the men whose wounds could not be bound. You adjust the spectacles that are famously perched on the end of your nose, holding the paper at a distance to read it. This is a quirky, familiar image of you at work. The tall man, hunched over a document, peering through his glasses as if they were scientific instruments designed to dissect language itself. Today, the words fall apart under your gaze. They feel hollow, inadequate. How can you speak of a just and lasting peace when the most vivid image in your mind is of your own coffin, lying in state just one floor below? It feels like a fraud. Historians still argue about the primary audience for your later speeches. Were you speaking to the northern public, the defeated South, or as some suggest, were you writing for history itself, for the war and a moral blueprint for a nation that you increasingly suspected you would not live to see rebuilt? Staring at these drafts, you feel the chilling truth of that last possibility. Perhaps you are no longer writing a speech for the living. Perhaps you are writing your own eulogy and the nation's. It's the ultimate form of high-stakes public relations. There's no focus group to test these phrases, no way to know if they will be received as an olive branch or as an insult. Every word is a gamble. You, a man who has gambled with the fate of a nation, who has wagered hundreds of thousands of lives on the principle of union, now feel paralyzed by the choice of a single adjective. You put the pen down. The ink glistens on the nib, unused. The work is not a refuge today. It is a mirror, reflecting your deepest fears back at you in the elegant script of your own handwriting. You are trying to write about the future of a nation, but you are haunted by the sudden, terrifying uncertainty of your own. The weight of these words is too much. For now, you let them rest, a scattered collection of hopes on a desk full of sorrows. The ink on the page seems to mock you. The noble words about peace and healing feel like lies when your own mind is a battlefield. You push back from the desk, the legs of the chair scraping against the floor. The four walls of the office, once a refuge, now feel like the sides of a box. You need air. You need motion. You need to see the world continuing on its axis, oblivious to the grim tableau that has taken up residence in your head. A carriage ride. That is what you need. A simple, ordinary carriage ride. You find Mary in her sitting room, surrounded by letters and dressmaking patterns. She is a woman swimming against a current of private grief, using the everyday details of her life as a raft. She looks up as you enter, and her brow furrows with concern. She can read the geography of your face, better than any political cartoonist. She sees the deep-carved lines of fatigue, the haunted look in your eyes. She mistakes it, as Seward did, for the familiar burden of the war. "A ride, Abraham?" she asks, her voice soft. "The air might do you good." "I believe it might," you say, forcing a weary smile. "Will you join me?" She agrees at once, eager for the chance to pull you away from the endless papers and the dark moods that have become your constant companions. Soon, you are settled in the open carriage, the familiar creak of the leather and the rhythmic clop of the horse's hooves providing a steady, calming beat. The carriage pulls away from the White House, and you are enveloped by the life of the city. Washington in the afternoon is a study in contrasts. Dignitaries in fine carriages share the muddy streets with mud-spattered army supply wagons. Wounded soldiers with empty sleeves or trouser legs lean against buildings, watching the world go by. Everywhere you look, there is evidence of the war, a constant, grim reminder. Yet, you also see signs of stubborn, persistent life. Children playing a game with a barrel hoop, a woman haggling at a market stall. Above it all, the new, magnificent dome of the Capitol building continues its slow rise into the sky, a powerful, silent argument for the endurance of the Union. Mary, sensing your need for distraction, keeps the conversation light. She talks about a letter from your son Robert, about a planned reception for a foreign diplomat, about the outrageous price of silk. She is building a small, fragile bubble of normalcy around the two of you, a space where death and strategy are not invited. You play your part. You nod, you smile, you offer a brief comment here and there, but your mind is 1,000 miles away. The core of your shared existence is the profound, unbreachable sorrow of losing your son, Willie, right here in the White House. It is a historical fact that Willie's death in 1862 devastated you both and sent Mary into a spiral of grief from which she would never fully recover. This shared tragedy is the reason you cannot speak. How can you place another such horror in her path? How can you tell your grieving wife that you are haunted by visions of your own funeral? The dream is your burden, and yours alone. To share it would be an act of cruelty, so you remain silent on the one thing that consumes you. You listen to her talk, but you are watching her face, imagining it streaked with tears, one of the anonymous, weeping faces in the crowd from your vision. The thought is a physical pain. The weight of protecting her from this premonition is heavier than the weight of the premonition itself. Historians and psychologists still debate the precise nature of Mary Todd Lincoln's mental health. While some retrospectively diagnose her with specific conditions, others argue that her profound, unresolved grief and the immense public pressures she faced are sufficient to explain her behavior. Your relationship was a complex codependency, a union built on political ambition, deep love, and a shared, cavernous sorrow. This makes your silence both a necessity and a betrayal. "You are very quiet today, Abraham," she says, placing her gloved hand on your arm. "Even for you. Just thinking about the speech, you lie." The words tasting like sawdust. The words do not come easily. She accepts this. It is a familiar complaint. It was a quirky aspect of your partnership that while she was the expert in social graces, she had absolute faith in your mastery of the written word. She pats your arm. "They will come, my dear. They always do." The carriage turns back towards the White House. The sun is lower in the sky, casting long shadows that remind you of the creeping darkness in your own mind. The ride has not helped. The fresh air has not cleared your head. It has only served to highlight the terrible chasm between the life you are pretending to live and the horror you are privately enduring. You have built a wall of silence around your fear to protect your wife, and in doing so, you have trapped yourself inside with it. The carriage rolls to a stop. You are home, but it does not feel like a sanctuary. It feels like the scene of a future crime. You escort Mary to the door of her rooms, bidding her a gentle good evening. The pretense of the carriage ride is dropped, and the space between you is once again filled with the things you cannot say to each other. She gives you a look of deep, loving pity, the look of a woman who knows her husband is suffering, but is powerless to reach the source of the pain. Then she closes her door, and you are alone in the hallway. The late afternoon sun slants through the tall windows, painting long, distorted stripes of light on the floor. You return not to your work, but to the simple armchair near the window of your office. The drafts of your speech lie untouched on the desk. Their hopeful words are stark contrast to the gloom that has settled in your heart. You don't light a lamp. You just sit, watching the light outside fade, the room slowly sinking into shadow. Your mind, untethered from work or conversation, begins to drift, to search for patterns, for some way to understand the terror that has ambushed you. The vision of the catafalque feels like a singular, unprecedented horror, but then, a memory surfaces. This is not the first time the world of slumber has brought you messages. You have had other dreams, one, in particular, a recurring visitor. You close your eyes, and summon it from the depths of your memory. The dream of the phantom ship, that it always begins the same way. You are not on the water, but standing on a shore, looking out over a vast, dark, and featureless sea. The water is unnaturally calm, like black glass. There is no sound of waves, no wind, no cry of gulls. There is only a profound and expectant silence. Then, you see it. It appears on the horizon, moving towards you, but also past you, on a diagonal course. It's a vessel of some kind, but its form is always indistinct. It's not a proud sailing ship or a simple steamboat. It is a long, low, singularly strange-looking craft, like one of the new ironclads, but sleeker, faster, more spectral. It has no sails and produces no smoke, yet it moves with an impossible, inexorable speed, cutting a sharp, silent wake through the black water. In the dream, you are filled with a sense of immense, anxious anticipation. You know, with the unshakable certainty of dream logic that this vessel is bound for a distant, dark shore, and that its passage signals that a momentous event is about to occur. You can do nothing but watch as it speeds through the twilight, a phantom of progress and doom, until it disappears from view. You always awaken just as it vanishes, your heart pounding with the knowledge that something significant is at hand. It is a well-documented historical fact that you spoke of this recurring dream to your cabinet members on several occasions. You told them how it had appeared to you just before the great battles, Antietam, Gettysburg, Vicksburg. It was your private omen, a spectral telegram from your own subconscious. The phantom ship, you've come to believe, is the harbinger of great news for the Union, usually a victory, though one always bought at a terrible price. Historians who study your inner life are fascinated by this naval dream. Some interpret it through a psychoanalytic lens as a symbol of the unstoppable, mechanized machinery of the war, speeding towards an unknown and violent conclusion. Others take a more literal approach, seeing it as evidence of a man whose intuition was so finely tuned to the nation's rhythm that it manifested as prophetic metaphor. For you, it is simply a fact of your inner life. The ship appears, and history turns a page. You've even told your Secretary of the Navy, Gideon Welles, about it. He, a more sober and superstitious man than the worldly Seward, would listen with grim fascination. This quirky habit of telling your war council about your dreams became a strange, almost mystical, footnote to your presidency. Some of them thought you a provincial fool, a man ruled by country superstitions, but they stopped smirking when your premonitions proved uncannily accurate. But as you sit there in the gathering dark, you realize the fundamental difference between that old, familiar omen and the new one. The ship was always distant, impersonal. It was about the nation, about armies and battles. It was a vision of the storm, viewed from the relative safety of the shore. The dream of the catafalque, however, that was not distant. That was intimate. It was not about a battle. It was about a coffin, your coffin. In your home. The two dreams connect in your mind with a sudden, sickening clarity. The phantom ship has always signaled a great national event. The death of a president would certainly be that. You feel a cold dread creep up your spine. The old dream was the overture. This new one is the final act. Perhaps the spectral vessel has one last voyage to make, and this time you have a terrible, sinking feeling that you know the identity of its passenger. Asterisk. You sit motionless in the armchair as night fully claims the room, the last vestiges of daylight shrinking from the window panes. The connection your mind has forged between the two dreams, the impersonal ship and the intensely personal coffin, like a final, grim piece of a puzzle falling into place. It doesn't feel like a flight of fancy. It feels like an answer. Your mind drifts back to the last time you mentioned the phantom ship to your cabinet. It was just before a major campaign. You can picture the scene now with perfect clarity, not as a memory, but as if you are a ghost observing your own life. You are all gathered around the long, heavy table in the cabinet room. The air is thick with tension and the competing scents of cigar smoke and old paper. You, at the head of the table, have just finished detailing the strategic situation. Then, you pause. "Gentlemen," you say, your voice lowering slightly, "I have had the dream again." In your mind's eye, you see their reactions as clearly as if they were sitting here in the dark with you. There is your Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, a severe, bearded man, bristling with furious energy. He shifts in his chair, his impatience a palpable force. Stanton lives in a world of timetables, troop numbers, and logistical chains. To him, this talk of dreams is mystical nonsense, a frustrating diversion from the cold, hard arithmetic of war. He wants to talk about ammunition reserves, not apparitions. Then there is Seward, your Secretary of State, ever the diplomat. You recall the conversation from this morning, his gentle dismissal. He leans back, a mask of polite interest on his face, but his eyes betray a weary indulgence. He sees it as your one forgivable eccentricity, the peculiar quirk of a great but burdened man. He tolerates the story of the phantom ship in the same way one tolerates a friend's harmless but tedious anecdote. He is waiting for you to get it out of your system so they can return to the real work. But then, across the table, there is Gideon Welles, your Secretary of the Navy. Father Welles, you sometimes call him, with his magnificent, prophetic beard and his solemn demeanor. He leans forward. There is no skepticism in his eyes. He is listening with a grave, focused intensity. Wells is a man who understands the superstitions of sailors, the vast and mysterious power of the sea. To him, an omen is just another form of intelligence, and he is taking it in, weighing it. He believes you, and in the varied reactions of these men, you see the debate that will follow you through time. Even now, sitting in the dark, you can imagine the historians of the future arguing about these very moments. Did your strange premonitions truly influence your wartime decisions? Did you ever delay an advance or press an attack based on the silent passage of this spectral ship? Or were these dreams simply a coping mechanism, a way for your profoundly stressed mind to process the unbearable weight of sending hundreds of thousands of men to their deaths? It's a cabinet meeting that is part strategic command and part esoteric seance, a situation that would baffle any modern management consultant. You see yourself looking at their faces, knowing full well what each of them is thinking. A key historical fact of your presidency is your ability to manage this team of rivals, to absorb their conflicting egos and viewpoints, and forge a singular policy. You listen to Stanton's pragmatic fury and Wells's superstitious dread, and you find your own path between them. But did the dream ever truly change your strategy? You honestly don't know. Perhaps not directly. You never called off a battle because the ship failed to appear, but it changed the atmosphere. It stiffened your resolve. It was a confirmation from the universe, or from the deepest parts of your own mind, that a great and terrible moment was at hand. It prepared you for the shock of the butcher's bill that would soon arrive on the telegraph dot. The imagined scene fades, the faces of your cabinet dissolving back into the shadows of your office. You are left with the core question. Does it matter? If there was stress or premonition, the result was the same. The ship appeared, and blood was spilled. The ship appeared, and the Union endured. To you, the dreams are real. Their meaning is real. And the meaning of this new dream, the dream of the weeping crowd and the flag-draped coffin, is as clear and cold as the grave. It is not an omen about a battle. It is an omen about the battle's end, and your own. And that is a piece of intelligence you cannot share with your cabinet. A soft knock at the office door pulls you from your reverie. It is a White House steward, his form silhouetted in the dim light from the hallway. "Sir," he says, his voice respectfully quiet, "dinner is served." Dinner. The machinery of daily life continues to turn, ignorant of your internal crisis. You should be hungry. You've eaten nothing all day. But the thought of food is nauseating. Still, you cannot refuse. It is a part of the day's ritual, a performance you must give for the sake of your family, for the sake of normalcy. You rise from the armchair, your limbs stiff, and followed the servant from the comforting darkness of your office into the brightly lit formality of the evening. The family dining room is aglow with candlelight, the flames reflecting off the polished silver and fine china. It is a picture of civilized grace, an island of decorum in a sea of war and chaos. Mary is already seated, and Tad is squirming in his chair, eager to begin. You take your seat at the head of the table, the position of patriarch, of leader. Tonight, it feels like the seat of a condemned man. A servant begins to serve the meal, a roast chicken, potatoes, greens. It is a fine, wholesome dinner, but you look at it with complete detachment. It's a well-known quirky fact about you, that you were a profoundly simple and often indifferent eater. You were famous for being so lost in thought that you would forget to eat altogether, often subsisting on little more than an apple, a biscuit, and a cup of coffee. Tonight, that abstraction is a blessing. You pick up your fork and knife and go through the motions, cutting a piece of chicken, moving some potatoes around your plate. You are a ghost at your own feast. The conversation is sparse and strained, much like the carriage ride earlier. Mary speaks of her day. Tad recounts a story about one of the White House gardeners. You nod and offer a monosyllabic when it seems required. But your mind is not at the dinner table. Your mind is back in the East Room, wandering among the weeping crowd of your dream. Your heart feels like a lead weight in your chest. A quiet meal, a heavy heart. The phrase circles in your head. As you look at the flickering candlelight, you superimpose the vision over the reality of the room. You are scanning the faces in the dream, trying to bring them into focus. You see the faces of your cabinet, just as you imagined them earlier. There is Stanton, his face grim, his usual impatience, replaced by a stony grief. There is Seward, his clever, cynical mask finally broken, his expression one of pure sorrow. You see Gideon Wells, his great beard trembling, looking like an Old Testament prophet whose direst warnings have come to pass. Biographers often note the paradox of your public and private personas. In public, you were the storyteller, the affable man with a bottomless supply of folksy anecdotes. In private, however, you were prone to long periods of deep, silent melancholy, what your contemporaries called the gloom. These quiet family meals were often the stage for your most profound and impenetrable silences, leaving historians to speculate on the dark and heavy thoughts that occupied you. Tonight, the gloom is a black ocean, and you are adrift in it. Your gaze drifts from the phantom faces of your cabinet to the real face of your wife. You watch Mary as she speaks to Tad, and in your mind, you see her face as it was in the dream, pale, devastated, aged by a grief so immense it seems impossible to bear. The need to protect her, the same instinct that kept you silent in the carriage, wars with the terrible certainty of the vision. You are the source of her future sorrow. The thought is a physical blow, more real than any food you might try to swallow. You put your fork down. You haven't taken a single bite. The pretense is impossible to maintain. Are you unwell, Abraham? Mary asks, her voice laced with the familiar anxiety she reserves for your health. Just weary, my dear, you say, pushing your chair back. I think I will turn in early. It's a lie, and you both know it, but it's a permissible one. It's the excuse you use when the weight becomes too much to perform against. You excuse yourself from the table, giving Tad's head a gentle pat as you pass. You leave them there, in the warm circle of candlelight, and step back out into the quiet, shadowy hallway. The formal ritual of the meal is over. It has offered no sustenance, no comfort. It has only confirmed your complete and utter isolation. And now, you feel a strange, inexorable pull towards the one room you have been avoiding all day. You have to see it for yourself. You leave the warmth and light of the dining room behind, and the familiar, shadowy quiet of the White House hallways envelops you once more. But this time, you are not drifting aimlessly. You are not pacing to outrun your thoughts. You walk, with a slow, deliberate, and heavy tread, each footstep a conscious decision. You know where you are going. You are answering the strange, magnetic pull that has been tugging at you since the waking vision hours ago. You are going to the East Room. You stand before the great double doors, their white paint seeming to glow faintly in the gloom. This is where the vision struck you. This is the threshold you must cross. Taking a deep, steadying breath, you place your hands on the cold brass handles and push. The doors swing inward with a low, mournful groan that echoes in the vast, empty space beyond. You step inside. The room is immense. It is a cavern of shadow and moonlight. The three magnificent gas chandeliers, which Mary was so proud of, hang like crystalline skeletons from the high ceiling, unlit and inert. Pale, silvery light streams through the towering floor, two ceiling windows, illuminating the intricate patterns on the grand carpet and throwing the shapes of the ornate furniture into stark, black relief. The air is cold, still, and heavy, noticeably chillier than the rest of the house. A simple historical fact is that this cavernous room was notoriously draughty and difficult to heat, giving it a perpetually formal and somewhat unwelcoming atmosphere. It is utterly, profoundly empty. There is no crowd. There are no soldiers. There is no coffin. There is only the vast, silent, and intimidating grandeur of the nation's formal parlor. You walk forward, your footsteps echoing unnervingly on the polished wooden floor around the edges of the carpet. You make your way to the very center of the room, the spot where your dream self and your waking vision both placed the catafalque. You stop here. You stand, a lone, tall figure in a sea of moonlight and shadow, keeping a strange and silent vigil. You are trying to reconcile the two realities, the reality of this empty, cold room, and the reality of the vivid, weeping horror in your mind. But the emptiness brings no comfort. It does not feel like a refutation of the dream. It feels expectant. It feels like a stage waiting for its players. You can feel the ghost of the vision superimposed on the space around you. You look at a spot near the wall and imagine Seward's face, crumpled in grief. You look towards the main entrance and imagine the press of the silent, weeping crowd. Right here, beneath your own 2 feet, is where the coffin rested. Your coffin. The thought no longer sparks panic, but a deep, resonant thrum of cold, quiet certainty. Your mind drifts 2 other times in this room. Happier times. A quirky, and for the staff, infuriating, tidbit of your family life is that you sometimes allowed Tad and your late son Willie to play in here. their wild energy a stark contrast to the room's formal purpose. You can almost see them, two small boys chasing each other around the very spot where you now stand, their laughter echoing where you now hear only silence. You remember Willie, especially, his bright, inquisitive face. You lost him in this house. This house has already been a place of profound mourning for you. The vision now feels less like a new tragedy and more like an echo of one you already carry. Historians who analyze your final months often point to a deepening fatalism in your character. It is debated whether this was a philosophical resignation, born of war weariness, or something more akin to a clinical depression. This self-imposed vigil could be interpreted as a man bravely confronting his deepest fears, or as a man succumbing to them, morbidly rehearsing his own demise. You stand there for a long time, 10 minutes, maybe 30. Time seems to have lost its meaning. You are not waiting for anything to happen. You are simply being present with the fear, letting it wash over you in its own territory. You are letting the reality of the place and the phantom of the dream merge into one. The fear does not leave, but as the minutes tick by, it changes its nature. The sharp, panicked edge softens into a dull, heavy ache of resignation, a kind of peace, the peace of accepting the unacceptable. Finally, you turn. Your vigil is over. You have faced the geography of your own premonition, and you are still standing. The room has not swallowed you. The ghosts have not appeared, but they are not gone. You have only learned their precise location. As you walk back towards the doors, you feel a profound shift within yourself. The terror has been replaced by a grim, quiet calm. You have looked into the heart of the vision, and while you did not defeat it, you are no longer running from it. You are ready for what comes next. You close the doors to the east room, the soft click of the latch sounding like a final punctuation mark. The vigil is over. The strange calm resignation you found in the moonlit emptiness of that room walks with you as you return to your office. There will be no more sleep tonight. You know that now. Sleep is where the visions began, and you have no desire to return there. Instead, you feel the pull of duty, but a different kind of duty from the grand, frustrating work of speechwriting. You need to connect not with the future, but with the present, with the people. You light a single candle on your desk, its small, flickering flame pushing back the darkness just enough. You ignore the folder with your speech drafts and instead pull a large, worn leather portfolio towards you. It is unbound, overflowing with papers of all shapes and sizes. This is your personal mail, the letters, the pleas, the demands, the prayers, and the curses of the American people, all sent here, to you, their last resort. It is a historical fact that you devoted an astonishing amount of your time to reading these letters. While your secretaries sifted through the mountains of correspondence, they knew to set aside a particular type for your personal attention. This portfolio is your direct line to the human cost of the war you are waging. It is your penance and your purpose. You untie the ribbon and pull out the first letter. The paper is cheap, the handwriting shaky but determined. It's from a woman in Ohio, a farm wife. She tells you she has already lost 2 sons at Gettysburg. Her third, and last, son has just been called up in the latest draft. She is not angry, not demanding. She is pleading. She asks if one life, her last remaining boy, can be spared for the union he has already been so dearly purchased by his brothers. Tucked into the letter is a tiny, faded tintype photograph of a serious-looking young man with his mother's eyes. You set the letter aside. Your new, grim calm does not make you immune to the pain in her words. If anything, it makes you more receptive to it. Before tonight, you would have felt the weight of her plea as a burden of command, a terrible, agonizing decision to be made. Now, you feel it as a shared sorrow. She is afraid of losing her son. You are afraid for your own life. You are both citizens of the same republic of fear. The next letter is written in pencil on a grimy sheet of paper that has been folded and refolded a dozen times. It's from a young private with the Army of the Potomac. He asks for nothing. He simply wants to tell the president what it's like. He writes of the endless mud, the bad food, the sheer, mind-numbing boredom of siege warfare, punctuated by moments of abject terror. He describes seeing a friend killed by a stray shell. While they were drinking coffee, he writes it all in a flat, simple style that is more powerful than any eloquent prose. This is the reality behind the casualty lists you read at the War Department. This is the texture of the lives represented by the names on the paper. Historians, often marvel at your accessibility and dedication to this mail. Some see it as a masterful political tool to gauge the mood of the country. Others view it as a deeply personal act, a way for a man burdened by the abstract scale of the war to connect with the individual human stories that comprised it. Tonight, it feels like both. You are taking the nation's pulse, and you are feeling its heartache as your own. You reach for another letter. This one is from a man in Pennsylvania, whose farm was in the path of the armies, destroyed by the very forces meant to protect him. His words are sharp with anger and desperation. He wants to know who will pay for his lost livelihood, for his burned-down barn. His anger is another flavor of the nation's suffering. You don't begrudge him it. You think of the other, more sinister, mail you receive. In a quirky and telling habit, you keep a separate file for the constant stream of death, threats, an envelope you have grimly labeled assassination. You've always viewed them with a kind of detached fatalism, a cost of doing business. But after the vision in the East Room, those letters no longer seem like the ravings of madmen. They feel like confirmations. They are the angry, hateful chorus to the sad, sorrowful music of the letters you hold now. You read on. For hours it seems, as the candle burns lower and the first hint of dawn begins to grey the sky outside your window. Each letter is a small, personal weight, a mother's plea, a soldier's fear, a farmer's anger, a widow's grief. You absorb them all. Your own personal dread, your prophetic fear of a coffin and a weeping crowd, has not vanished, but it no longer feels singular. It has been joined by the legion of other sorrows you hold in your hands. You are no longer a lonely man haunted by a private vision. You are the chief mourner in a nation of grief, and your heart, already so heavy, simply makes room for more. The candle on your desk sputters, its flame dancing one last, defiant jig before it drowns in its own wax, plunging the room into the soft, grey light of dawn. The long night is over. Outside, the city of Washington is beginning to stir, but in this room, a profound stillness has settled. The letters lie before you, a mosaic of a nation's quiet desperation. You have absorbed their weight, and in doing so, your own personal terror has found its proper context. It is but one story of sorrow among millions, with a deep sigh that seems to come from the very marrow of your bones. You rise. The day will begin soon, with its endless parade of generals, politicians, and petitioners. You know you must try to get an hour or two of rest if you are to face it. You walk over to the small washstand in the corner of your bedroom, pouring some cool water from the pitcher into the basin. The splash is a loud intrusion in the quiet. You undo your collar, preparing for the brief ritual of washing before lying down, and then, you look up. You catch your own eye in a simple, unadorned mirror hanging on the wall. You gaze into your own reflection, and for a long moment, you don't see a president. The powerful, symbolic figure of the commander-in-chief is gone. The shrewd lawyer and the folksy storyteller are gone. All the roles you play, all the masks you wear for the world, have fallen away. Instead, you see only the man, Abraham, a tall, stooped figure, his cheap nightshirt hanging loosely on his gaunt frame. You see a face that has been eroded by grief and responsibility. The shocking physical toll the war took on you is a stark historical fact, documented in photographs that show you aging decades in just 4 years. The deep lines etched around your eyes and mouth are the roads and rivers of a nation's map of pain. The dark, hollowed-out look in your eyes is the reflection of the vigil you just kept in the East Room. The profound weariness in the set of your jaw is the weight of every letter you just read, every life you could not save. You are looking at a man who is haunted by the future. You finally see the man the soldier in your dream was talking about, not some abstract figurehead, but this man, this tired, sad, mortal man. You see a man who has made peace with his own ending, who has stared into the heart of his own morbid vision and accepted it as a coming truth. Historians will forever debate the man in the mirror. Was he a master politician who sacrificed himself for the Union, a secular saint, or simply a man broken by a burden too great to bear? Looking at your own reflection, you know the truth is simpler. You are all of them, and none of them. You are just a man who has seen the end of his story. You lean closer, your breath fogging the glass. There is no fear left, only a vast, quiet, and all-consuming sadness. For your wife, for your sons, for the country, and for this man in the mirror, this stranger you have become, who must now carry this terrible secret alone into the light of a new day. You turn away from the mirror now. leaving that haunted figure behind. The story is told. The long night has found its dawn, and the heavy burden of this journey can be set down at last. The weight of the nation, the visions, and the fears can all begin to fade, drifting away like smoke from a dying candle flame. The quiet corridors of the White House grow distant. The rustle of 1,000 sorrowful letters softens into a gentle whisper, and then into silence. All that is left is the steady, rhythmic sound of your own breathing, a quiet and peaceful anchor. In the deep and welcoming darkness, let the world outside your window continue on its course. Its concerns are no longer yours. Your only task now is to let go, to allow the gentle current of slumber to pull you away from the shore of wakefulness, towards a place of deep and untroubled rest.